All righty, good evening, everyone. We're going to start, you're wondering why I'm doing it from here. We're going to start with the annual Capital Facilities Corporation meeting. So I'd like to call that meeting to order. Roll call vote, which shows that we have all 7 board members present. Are there any public comments on any items listed on the Capital Facilities Corporation agenda? Seeing none, the first order of business is the Board of Directors reorganization and election. And typically, what we do with the Capital Facilities Corporation is that the officers of that mirror the officers for the current year. So I'll just go down and kind of read what the new nominees would be. 2018 President would be George Neely, Vice President Gary Kneckstead, Secretary Joe Nava, and the Financial Officer would be Leonard Kahn. Are any questions or comments or other nominations for those positions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would move approval of these officers.
Do I have a second? Second. All righty.
Is this about an action item? It says info on this. Says info, there's no action. The action item is on the minutes only. According
We
to
have it as info because we weren't going to vote electronically.
Oh, yeah, we have to, the other sheet,
oh, roll call, okay.
yeah, the other sheet is a separate sheet. You're right, though, it does say info, absolutely.
Right, no problem, let's go.
All righty, we have a motion and a second for these officers. I have to do a roll call vote. Mr. Freitas?
Aye.
Mr. Heverly, aye. Mr. Kneckstead?
Aye.
Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Nava? Mr. Tolkien?
Aye.
And Ms. Castle?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion passes. The next item is minutes of the January 17th, 2017 Capital Facilities Corporation meeting. Comments, questions, motions?
Well, since you're not,
Second.
objection, since you're not president anymore, wouldn't this now transfer over to the new president?
There you go.
All right, can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Yeah, a great idea.
Got motion, second. Any discussion? Do we need a roll call vote on this, or can we just, okay, let's start down with Mr. Freitas.
Aye.
Just go right down the line.
You didn't name me. Yeah, yes, aye.
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 Motion is approved. Any further discussion? Seeing none. The Capital Facilities Corporation meeting is closed. And with that,
I don't want to vote for that.
we're going to reconvene the public meeting. Roll call will show that everyone is present. And if you will please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Face the flag, salute, and pledge.
Aye.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We have no items to report out of closed session. No action was taken. Moving along to the next thing is comments from the board president. I want to take just a second here to go through this. Many times when we have a change in the president, we will comment to get started. I'm going to improvise here and read a little bit also as we go along. It's a little over 7 years ago, in December of 2010, that I was first sworn in as a member of this board. Back then, things were a lot different. We were in the middle of a financial crisis and money was incredibly short. Lodi Unified, along with most other districts in this state, was caught in a cycle of layoffs. And those layoffs were devastating to our district. Teachers were removed from grade levels and from schools that they had taught at for years. We lost a lot of fine new teachers as well. Our counselors were cut drastically. And for those that stayed, the workload was increased. Our classified employees were hit hard with layoffs and increased workloads. There wasn't an area in this district that was untouched. When we came on as a board back then, our first priority was to stop the bleeding, specifically to stop the layoffs. And that's what we did. Through some tough financial concessions by our employees, and through some innovative restructuring by our administrators, we were able to put this district back on a sound financial footing that we haven't left since. And I appreciate very much everything that everybody did for us at that time, because we have stopped those demoralizing and disrupting layoffs. But that's not all that this district did together. The most important thing that Lodi Unified did was to not give up. Our people found ways to keep pushing forward for our students. The district continued to innovate as we faced those hard times. And in spite of all the problems that we had, student achievement continued to increase year after year after year. And that's because of our people. We introduced new academic intervention programs into our classrooms to help our struggling students. We increased career and technical education classes throughout the district. We came up with new social programs, such as the SAFE program, to help our families and students with problems. We brought new technology into our classrooms and made this district where every student has a computer in every classroom when they need it. We also increased the number of professional development days for our teachers and increased the time that they have to get their classrooms ready before the start of school. We also started some new and very innovative programs in coordination with our teachers, started this year. We established the Review Board for Excellence in Training, and we call it the RBET. We call it that because we just didn't have enough acronyms in public education already. I was at a meeting of the RBET, and I'll talk about that later, but it's incredible. Now, the RBET will be developing master model and teacher specialist programs for the district that will challenge and reward our teachers to seek new responsibilities and give them new professional development growth opportunities as well. The RBET will also work to develop a new evaluation plan that trains our evaluators and establishes much needed continuity between evaluations. It will be based on acknowledging high-performing teachers and helping those teachers that might need some additional training in specific areas. The RBET will oversee the development of a new individualized professional development plan that will allow teachers to pick some of their training that they want to pursue and when they want to pursue it. This is a process, the same process has been used by the California Bar Association for the professional development for their attorneys for years. So it works, and I'm really happy that we're able to bring that to Lodi Unified. We're going to be working on developing similar programs for administrators, CSEA, LPPA, and our other groups as well. We're doing this because we've got to invest in our people. An institution that's successful has got to invest in its people. Now, I want to speak just real quickly about one of my major goals for this coming year as president. As you know, public education is fraught with changes. Whether it's from the federal government, state governments, changes in technology and in curriculum, or changes in our student population, the only constant in public education is change. I'm sure everyone here has seen a tremendous amount of change during your time in public education. And I'm here to tell you that's the one thing that's not going to change. How much you're going to see. You're going to continue to see new technology and new programs coming to our district that will require new ways of doing things and additional training as well. One thing I'm going to tell you, our goal is not to add any cost, quite the opposite, or to make changes just for the sake of making changes. Our goal is to find more efficient and cost-effective ways of providing the best education possible for our students and taking care of our people while meeting the constant changing requirements. And that brings me to my goal. This district has a lot of very, very good people. They've done a great job and should be extremely proud of themselves. We do a lot of things good. Well, one of the things that we don't do quite as well as we could is communicate. We seem to have some problems here and there, and I'll talk later about a problem that just surfaced. That's not my fault. That's not our fault. It's not the fault of our district. We just don't have the processes in place, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be working on. I've been with this district for over 12 years now, and I can attest to the fact that it's full of some really wonderful, innovative, and talented people that want the best for our students, and they want the best for this district. Sometimes we just don't get together too well, so that's one of the things that we're going to work on. So I'm announcing that one of my goals this year as president is to find ways that this district can communicate better with staff, students, parents, and the community. This is going to involve a number of initiatives, including a new digital presence with a new website as a cornerstone. We will be reviving relationships with local media in Lodi and in Stockton as well. In order to reach our communities, we're going to employ new methods. We've got to get our teachers and our community involved. I would also like to increase our communications with the city councils in both Lodi and in Stockton as well, and also with business owners. And I'm going to be asking board members to go out and meet with some of these people and tell them about the good things that's going on with Lodi Unified. We're going to discuss more about communication efforts in our next meeting. But I would also like to hear from anybody your thoughts on how we can improve the communications inside this district and outside this district. And I'm going to close by saying that, again, we've got a lot of talent, a lot of experience in this district. If we work together, we can make Lodi Unified the education destination that our staff, our students, and our communities want and deserve. And that's all for my comments for that. Okay, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Washer.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things to share with you this evening. We have a picture from Oakwood Elementary School. This is the graduation ceremony from their Parenting Partners group. You can see that this is quite a good size group for Parenting Partners. Oakwood isn't a huge school, and Parenting Partners is something that a lot of our sites are trying to get off the ground. They train staff and parents to deliver the program, and it is geared towards helping parents learn how to navigate the educational system and to give them tools on parenting that they can use at home with their children. Those folks that attend really get a lot out of it. We've heard from parents and teachers who have learned quite a bit from this program, and at the end they do celebrate their graduation. So this is Oakwood's latest group of Parenting Partners graduates. So thank you, Oakwood, for that. Also want to show you one of our clips of our kindness campaign, one of the mini movies that was developed and produced by Joey Travolta. This one is about the Breakfast Club. So if we can get this one. No, we're not the nerds on call. We're not the nerds on call that was coming up on Good Day America. We're the kindness campaign, so we'll see what comes up here.
Today, we're celebrating simple acts of kindness with a video produced by Inclusion Films. This workshop provides adults with developmental disabilities introduction to film production.
Today, 2 elementary schools in Lodi Unified School District share their gifts of caring and friendship. Older students at Larson Elementary are breakfast buddies who assist younger students to breakfast each day. And at Lakewood Elementary, a group of students there lead activities and fun as they create friendly friendships and bonds alongside students with disabilities. Take a look.
We had to make some changes to our drop-off procedures to help make our campus more secure, and so we wanted to have a way for the kids when they were dropped off at a gate to get into the cafeteria. So we asked some of the older kids, help them get their breakfast so that they wouldn't be so overwhelmed with everything.
When the first time I saw the papers of like a breakfast buddy, I was like, I definitely want to be this. I always wanted to help around in my school, and I felt this was a fun thing because I always loved helping my middle siblings.
You get to have fun with them, help them open their containers, get to know the kids.
Who's your favorite breakfast buddy?
I like how they help us.
I just think it's great to see them developing relationships between across the ages, taking on a responsibility that they're excited to participate in the school and make the school better.
Hey boys and girls, it's time to know the circle of friends. One of the other speech therapists at another school sent out an email asking for other sites to join them in starting Circle of Friends.
Because kids out there, like sometimes they're just lonely at the playground. It just helps them to know other people that are nice.
Good job, Chris.
So my friend Karis, she was picked to be a part of Circle of Friends first, and then she picked me as a friend to be involved with the group of the three of us.
This program is very important because we're always trying to get our kids to find friends, and when they move from elementary school and go off to middle school, we want to make sure that they're feeling included and that they feel part of where they are.
If you grow up without any friends, it's going to be a very hard life.
Having these students become friends, it's so practical. The general ed students are able to learn leadership skills, and there's so much compassion going on.
Nice.
Great story there. 8:19 here on this Thursday morning.
Thank you. That was two of our winners for the contest we had for simple acts of kindness. And we are hoping to get Mr. Travolta here to a board meeting to share with you what he's doing with us and what may be in the future, and show another clip. So hopefully you'll be able to meet him at a future board meeting. Want to thank our community for a very successful crab feed for our nonprofit foundation Got Kids. We had over 300 people attend. I think everyone had a great time. We had a lot of student support. Want to thank McNair, Tokay High, Middle College High for volunteering to be student servers. And at the last minute, we needed to be bailed out, and our student board representative, Raj, took that on and made sure that we had a good number of students from Bear Creek show up to help us when we needed them. So thank you to all of our student groups for helping, all of our volunteers and our sponsors. Should be a great moneymaker for us. We don't have final numbers yet, but we're looking at well over 20,000 to go to Got Kids that will go directly back out to the schools. Thank you.
That's it? Are you okay?
Yeah, it was just computer was flashing strange stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Washer. All right. Next on my agenda is comments from the public. All right. A 20-minute time period has been set aside for the public to address the board on items not listed on the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit his or her comments to 3 minutes, but is welcome to distribute any material to the board and or staff. Due to restrictions imposed by the California Brown Act regarding discussing topics that are not on the agenda, board members may not engage in dialogue about the issue. Do we have any cards?
No, we do not.
All right. That never happens. All right. Any comments from the public? Very well. Seeing none. We'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda A. Board members, anyone who would like to pull something from consent agenda A?
Mr. President, item A11.
A11. Mr. Maxted. Anything else? Any items the public would like pulled from the agenda?
Mr. President.
Wait, try to, do you have your agenda? Thank you. My phone clicked me off. Gotta love the unprinted copy.
Amen.
Item A15.
Item A15 for Michelle. Okay?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve consent agenda A.
Second.
Freitas and Mr. Knopf. Student vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, all approved. And bringing it back for the board
You
vote.
know what, I'm not. I didn't join that. They had me on it 2 months ago.
You can go ahead and use the full screen as free.
Yeah, that's,
We don't charge by the insurance. All right, motion passes 7-0. Item A11, Mr. Knackson.
Yeah, item A11 is dealing with the Tokay High School bleacher improvements. There's a $3 million estimate, I guess, on completing the bleachers, and I'm not completely opposed to it, but I've heard lots of, well, several people have contacted me even after I decided to pull this, and we're concerned about, we're spending $3 million on bleachers, but we're not spending money on classrooms, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted Mr. Khan to kind of go through the rationale for the $3 million and why we need to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Knax. In essence, the field, the track, and the lighting structures at Tokay High School are all being replaced. They'll be brand new. They'll be state of the art. I imagine at some time there was a thought that the present bleachers could be maintained and just proceed without any replacement or refurbishment. At this point, we do understand that those bleachers are not ADA compliant with the work done in the field. They would have to, in the very minimum, be brought up to ADA compliance. I don't have a cost for that, but I don't imagine it will be cheap. There is some rationale to move forward with the bleacher project at this point, as it would complete the stadium. It would also save money versus completing the stadium field, the track, and the lighting, ending the project there, refurbishing the bleachers, and then at some later point in time, coming back and redoing bleachers if that would be a board priority. So the ability to just continue the project, by allowing this change order to proceed with the bleachers, would represent some level of cost savings versus doing the project again in the future. The site has also voiced the priority of building some type of structure. Clearly, it would be an outdoor structure with ADA and enrollment in excess of 2,000 students, and it is one of our high schools that is expected to grow in enrollment in the master plan. The last number I saw was approximately 2,400. The site has expressed a desire to have one facility that would house the entire student population for student events such as the 15-minute exercise and every 15-minute exercise in the spring.
Can I add something to that too? I was out there and spoke to some people. The contractors, there was talk about maybe moving the bleachers that are there. Well, they're just not worth moving. There's no telling what would happen. And what really gets me is the thought about having a bleacher accident there. We've seen those in the news where these things collapse and that kind of thing. So that's, I understand the whole thing about $3 million, believe me. We're not approving a specific expense tonight.
You would be authorizing this project to go forward as a change order tonight.
To go forward, right?
If the board doesn't see this as a priority At the present moment, we can always do the bleachers later. But this particular resolution authorizes a change order that would allow the project to proceed.
Do these, does this set of bleachers include the press box?
It does, yes.
All that.
Great.
So that's what you're,
Absolutely, and then you have a statement here where it's 40-plus years old and structural is diminishing with, like George says, any little accident that happen, they're not ADA approved or anything like that, so I don't know. To me, it's a no-brainer to happen.
I also think it's probably an important thing that we do. I just want to make sure that we're not taking money from other sources, other projects that might be equally as important, and as they're getting put on the back burner. Specifically, maybe replacing portables and that type of stuff at the other sites, if that's what we were doing.
Well, it's a fool who will predict, so
okay.
Let me be the fool. Versus the market cost of construction of anything, bleachers, classrooms, of modernizing or refurbishing a parking lot, even fire alarms now must go to DSA for approval, so in essence they're construction as well. The market cost is the market cost. There won't be any savings to that. So whatever that number is, this is an additive to the Measure U program's market cost. Versus the estimates that I believe will be provided to the board at the end of January. Our team has worked extensively already with architects, with professional service companies, and with manufacturers to target modular buildings, which we believe would represent somewhere in the neighborhood of a 25 to 30% decrease in the estimated cost going forward. We're also hoping to save substantial resources versus the estimated cost for the M&O project, which we will in all likelihood seek permission to move forward on the January 30th meeting. So at this point, between athletic facilities representing somewhere, and these are just estimates, we'll know more on the 30th of this month, but athletic facilities somewhere about 5%, and basically that's Tokay's field improvements, including the bleachers and Tokay's gym, represents about 5% of the Measure U dollars, not including any state eligibility or other matching funds. Classroom projects, a guesstimate for just construction alone, not site preparation, maybe 32%. So I believe there will be ample monies to build classrooms, and at least this fool is predicting that.
Mr. President.
Sir.
If we're going to do, and we are going to do the field for both football and soccer, and the track for track, I don't want to leave a job partway done, and that's why I will move approval of item 11.
I second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been very proud of our district as we've rolled out Measure U in how all the school staffs have been very much a part of feedback on what needs to be done at their particular sites. And as I visited schools, I always ask about that. In 201, all the schools have been very happy with their ability to be part of this decision-making process. Even when it comes to change orders, people are saying they took our advice. So my only concern with this is that I would like to know, because some of this, the concerns are coming from Tokay staff. Has the Tokay staff been part of this bleacher process? Are they in favor of this? And I don't think we know that, do we?
I will check on that and get back to you. But I do know the site it's sort of an unfortunate term, but the site squatting sessions were extensive. I know Mr. Sanderstrom has extensive notes on the meetings that occurred there. My understanding from site administration is that this is a desired priority for them. So, but I will review all the squatting session minutes where I can find them, and I'll also talk to site staff and report back.
Okay, hold on a second. My concern is that if this is not done when we do the initial refurbishing, that it's gonna end up costing us more to meet ADA compliance on it. And like I say, the safety aspect of it is a big thing. That's my point. Any other board comments right now, or?
I'm still talking.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think, I
actually.
I need to change my, yeah. I do agree with you. ADA compliance can be a big pain in the rear, and I think that we need to address it, and I think you have. My concern, and the concern I was hearing from folks was that everything else is being put on the back burner, and it's not as important as the bleachers. Bleachers are important, and I think you've explained and that everything's going to get taken care of, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Got some pointing going on back there. Who would like to speak up?
Nobody.
All right. Come on up and identify yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Michael Holst. I'm the athletic director and the head football coach over at Tokay. As a staff member, this is my 4th year there as an RSP teacher as well. And so, in a lot of that time, about half that time, we've been talking about the field project and the bleachers being part of that model as the project proposed on a lot of drawings. So people have been over the process of things confused about whether they were part of the plans, whether they weren't part of the plans. Were we going to leave the bleachers as is? As an athletic director, it has been since the project has come, we didn't know what was going on with the bleachers, kind of an odd point because the bleachers are in disrepair. Hosting anybody there is sketchy to say the least because there's no wheelchair access to anything. Even entrance to the stadium area is very difficult for people in the wheelchair. The curbing to the track area is too high for a wheelchair, so that was solving a lot of that problem with the track and everything. But as you guys have said, I think it's important to note bringing something to completion and doing the whole project. $3 million is a lot of money. I think when you look at improving stuff in the classrooms, whether it's an actual building, obviously there's a very extensive cost to that. But I think sometimes we don't always remember the impact that athletics and the culture of having a good athletics program on campus can do for kids who over a third of our kids are participating in athletics that we have. 50% plus are going to attend games in that stadium, and it's a lot about that. Our athletes are high performers in the classroom, attend class more than non-athletes, and they're excellent kids across the board. And I think we would all hate for it to be left where we have a new stadium, we have a beautiful new track, we have a place to play on Friday nights for football, we have a place to freeze our butts off in the winter for soccer games now, but we can't do anything because we don't have bleachers, and now we spent $3 million to improve it, but we can't even put the final product out during an actual game. And I know bleachers don't impact the classrooms on the outside looking in as much when we're looking at that, but I think the overall effect of being able to host games on campus and that community there is huge, and it's hard to put a value on that, but I think we see a lot of value in that at Tokay for sure. And as far as the staff goes, I haven't heard any negative comments in regards to the bleachers per se. We've sat in a lot of sessions about earmarking money for Measure U and what fits our site best. And the field was definitely a priority because we were able to use other money for it outside of Measure U, and then hopefully complete the project with a little bit of Measure U money without having to use the whole lot of money for that. So I haven't heard any negative comments from any staff member with the bleachers. They're excited about having that facility. Our PE teachers are excited about being able to use that facility as well. So as far as negative comments, I haven't personally heard anybody from anybody in regards to the bleachers, this money versus that money, and spending it that way.
All right, so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, Mr. Neely, one thing, I just gotta stress this, okay, because it's bothering me, that if you go to the Stockton Unified School District, all their high schools have a stadium. That stadium was, by a measure that they passed, for like 480 million, and they had that earmarked to athletics and all. If you want to visit a state-of-the-art place, go to Stagg High School, including the swimming pool. Everything is baseball, lights, softball, lights, soccer, everything. Now, we go to Lodi, we're an antique here. It's an ancient thing. We've got North Stockton, we've got two stadiums. Again, Major L for the Bear Creek and McNair Stadium. Now, what's the problem with not putting one at Tokay? If we could put one at Lodi and space was enough, I'd be 100% for it. I think it has, you are what you eat, okay? In other words, there's a lot of pride when you build a stadium at Tokay in our district. Those people will have a lot of pride, and they will have not only functions in athletics, they'll have functions on other things that can have concerts and so forth and so on that will happen there. You can rent the field sometimes if it's feasible. So, and then again, we have one high school that doesn't have anything because there's no space. This stadium could serve both schools, as I mentioned the last time I talked about it. You can schedule your games, flip-flop them, home and home, or whatever it is, or you can play Thursday night games and Friday night games. That can be done. And I've been exposed to that, and I've done that in my scheduling as an athletic director. And the reason I'm bothered about it, because when I was coaching, and I retired in 2005, I played in a field where there was old hose. And you can ask Mr. Todd Dillon over there. He had some injuries on his teams when they went to play us at Stagg, and we had it on a Saturday afternoon. Never played any games there. We went to UOP Stadium, or we had to bus to Edison Stadium to play the games. That's why it bothers me that you got a lot of things here that it shouldn't even be asked about why you want to build a stadium at Tokay High School. I'm finished with it.
Why don't you tell us what you really think about it? Mr. President? Yes, one thing that being able to go to a lot of the town hall meetings about Measure U and the sessions that were at the different sites and stuff, one thing that was not mentioned is that this is a project that can be done right away while we're working on getting the classrooms, which I'll have to go through, design and bid and, architectural, go to the state and all that, which takes 6 months, even at the state architect's office. So we're looking at classrooms with easily a year down the road. It's not that this is more important or less important, it's that it's all timing. We're trying to get things going that were on the list for each of the schools, and some we can do right away and get them moving and get them going, while the other ones are in preparation for those items to be completed. So it's not that it's more of a timing issue. We're trying to get things done as much as we can while the other things are coming towards us and getting past the state architect's office, which is seriously a logjam. Anyway, that's just the other point I wanted to make.
Thanks, Mr. Freitas.
Mr. President, I have a question and a comment. Mr. Khan, I looked through the materials and studied forward and just confirmed one thing. By doing this, we are not crossing off any of the other Measure U projects. We have enough of a reserve. that we can do everything that we set out to do with Measure U?
I believe that we'll be able to get the board's priorities done. Again, our team, and that being F&P, has crisscrossed Sacramento down to Manteca, looking at modular buildings. I think that will represent substantial savings to the price estimates that the program architect LPA will provide us at the end of this month. I don't anticipate crossing anything off, although we are looking seriously at the type of structure that we will put at, say, the M&O building, which is a non-student building. So we've looked extensively at, say, steel buildings as a very big cost saver versus stick-built and honestly modular buildings as well. So.
Very good. And we also have some reserve with the Measure L bonds.
We do. We've had a study done for us by our broker at very conservative net asset values. We believe that we could complete approximately $9 million worth of Measure L projects that are also cross-current with Measure U, and still retain enough authority, not capacity at this moment, but authority to build a K-8 school in Stockton should growth require that as well.
Very good. And then my comment, Mr. President, is this. I would join in all my other colleagues' comments, but it makes little sense to me that we would build a field and then close the field and not have it accessible to build the bleachers when we make the bleachers a construction site. So I think doing it all at once makes a lot more sense time-wise, like Mr. Everly was pointing out. So this has my support.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. Any other comments?
One last one.
Yes, was it Mr. Holtz?
Yes.
Thank you for your comments, and Mr. Khan, I am well satisfied that indeed the Tokay staff must know about this, all of it, and so I too will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casso. Mr. Knackset, last word.
Just one last comment, Mr. Holtz. I am, in fact, a big supporter of athletics, as I think you well know. I've been involved with my entire life, from athlete to administration. My only concern, and I think Mr. Khan satisfied it, was that this project would not be at the sacrifice of some other projects, and he's explained that it should not be. So I'm definitely supporting this.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir. You had a question? No. Oh, I thought you said I had a question. All right. We've got the motion. We've got the second. All right. Student preferential vote?
Aye. Aye.
3 ayes. Calling for the board vote. And the measure passes 7-0. Before I move on to second, Mr. Dillon, could you, if it's all right, would you stay around after the meeting? I'd like to talk to you.
Okay.
On a personal basis.
He goes to bed early, man.
I'm gonna try to get done early, all right?
Tell him to speed this meeting along.
Stay up.
Okay. Can we, can we get to item 15? Michelle? Hey, Happy New Year.
Good evening, Happy New Year. Item A15 is the instructional calendar. I know I emailed Mr. McKilligan about the calendar not having the work days, teacher work days on it. Looking back to 2015 in October, when we approved the 16-17 calendar, it did have the teacher work days on the calendar, so that it was clearly delineated as non-instructional days but teacher work days. We have had a lot of, with 2 calendars floating out there, you'd be surprised at people who are booking their vacations that the student calendar is readily seen and available, but the non-instructional calendar, the work calendar for teachers. And what that does basically is put color days, the 5 days in front of the year, so teachers know to plan before that time. And we would just ask, when the board looks at these instructional calendars, if we could bring forward a student instructional calendar and a instructional calendar for teachers. They have been hanging on, waiting bated breath for this to be approved. And when it came out without the days in front, there's lots of questions about what those work days are. And as you know, we have many teachers in our district that are new and unfamiliar with the varied calendars. And so I just am concerned. I know of one member who scheduled a family reunion and did not realize there was an entirely separate, so she lost out on early health benefits because she was not back in time for that work day. So I just, as we go forward, could we have both presented to the board as they get approved, or send something out right away saying this is the teacher work calendar, so that teachers can then make their vacation plans, those that do it well. And we did it in 2015, so I'm not sure why the change the last 2 years.
Absolutely makes sense. Do you want to postpone? Would you like
I
this
do
postponed?
not want to postpone.
Mr.
All right.
President, may
And
we
you just
comment?
want it, you just want this added, the days added, and you want that done soon,
Yes,
okay?
just so
And of course,
everyone can
Let me
plan.
finish up here, please. So, and we've got a little bit of issue with that because of the individualized professional development. That, are we going to put all 5 days on there? That's not something we had discussed yet.
No, but if you're referring to the RBET, the contract still states the 5 days, the 2.5 work days, and then the PD. Now, I'm not sure if we're looking at changing that for next year. If that's the case, or that would obviously be something that teachers, I'm telling you, I've got some teachers that, man, they've got those vacation plans.
Okay.
And I don't know if is that the reason? Because last year it didn't go on there.
Right.
And so I don't think anyone caught that the non-instructional days were not on the calendar last year. So I'm just, why the change?
Right.
And Mr. McKilligan did explain that this is the student calendar. And so I am concerned going forward that my members know tonight what the work days are.
You want us to get that?
Computer's doing it again.
Okay, all right, so you want, you're fine with this, we pass this, and then you want the days added as soon as possible.
As soon as we can publish, send that out to members, and going forward, if we can, with calendars,
Okay,
show that.
Are you adding the work, are you making this into an employee work calendar, or is this the student instructional calendar? What I explained to her today is this is for students and parents. Every employee classification has an employee work year calendar, including teachers. That'll be posted on the website immediately.
that's all she's asking for.
Is that all you're asking for?
I don't think so. I think teachers want to know that it's, when we bring calendars forward, that those days are acknowledged. I guess
What you're
if the
saying,
piece is,
We give students and parents a calendar. We publish a calendar for students and parents.
Right.
It shows the days students are going to be in school.
that's what this is.
That's what this is. Then we have already ran past all of our employee groups the instructional calendar and how it relates to their employees. They know where the 5 days are because that's what we took to them, the teacher work year calendar. Leah has it. You pass this tonight, their work year calendar is as we gave to them. This calendar represents what we've agreed with all the employees will be the instructional calendar for students and parents. They all know what their work year calendar will be as a result of it. And we post those work year calendars on the website for employees to see. But we don't mix what we give to students and parents to confuse them about which day students are in school.
Michelle, are you okay with that?
so on that explanation, can you tell me why from October 2015, we posted the calendar, that was the last one we posted with the work non-instructional days on the calendar for everybody. And just the last 2 calendars, we've taken it off. Why the
We
change
took
then?
that off because parents and students we heard from were getting confused as to what those first 5 days were, or when they occurred through the year, when they were happening, whether kids were coming or not. So the
Okay.
student instructional calendar no longer includes any employee work days.
Okay, is it possible, and I don't know, bringing 2 calendars forward to the board, one that's a student instructional calendar, one that's a work calendar, so that we know that you're approving what days are work days?
You've already got a calendar worked out, right?
Yeah, we already met the consultant.
My understanding is that it had to come before the board before those calendars were approved. But you're not seeing those calendars, so hence our apprehension.
The student
Because-
instructional calendar needs to be approved by the board.
Right.
Mr. McKilligan works with the employee groups on the work calendars, because we're not just talking about a teacher work calendar, we're talking about all employee calendars.
Right, no, and I get that, but here, what we've got is the head of one of our major labor groups who does not have an understanding of what that calendar that has been put out. So we just need, again, it's a communication issue, we just need to solve this, that's all. And
We've seen the calendar, we
Right.
don't know what you're approving. Are you approving those work days?
we are approving at this point just this instructional calendar. Are we gonna have to approve the other one?
No, because by contract,
They're
the
in the
others are
contract.
the 5 days in front.
Okay. So you've already put that out, and now it's known.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, there was, with the RBET, there's also the question if IPD was changing. So there's,
We're still talking about that.
exactly. So, and I think that's where some people are feeling in limbo.
There may be 5 days on that calendar, and not everyone will make all 5 days. That's.
That has yet to be determined,
that is
Mr.
yet-
President, and that would
I
be
said may.
and that would need to
Right.
be talked about with our employee group.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we'll have 5 days there anyway. Okay, any
Mr.
other?
President,
Yes, sir.
move to approve.
Second. Let's give this one to Mr. Talkin on that.
Give it to him.
All right.
He needs it.
Any further discussion from the board?
Could Dr. Washer, would you tell us one more time, what are we approving?
You are approving the student school days.
Thank you.
Okay.
Students.
Students calling for the preferential vote.
Aye.
3 yeses, board calling for the vote. Passes 7-0. Moving on to consent agenda B. Student discipline.
Yeah, Mr. Neely, I move that we approve student discipline cases, consent agenda B.
Second. Mr. Heverly on that one. All right. Students do not vote on discipline cases. Calling for the board vote. Approved 7-0. Other action items to consider for approval is Dr. Washer.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we are bringing you a revision to the Curriculum Council policy and rule. The policy is just, looks like technical at this point revisions, because the policy, as you can see, is very brief. The meat of it is in the rule. This came from concerns from Leah about our current practice with Curriculum Council and some things that they wanted to see changed. So Michelle and I had several discussions about how this could look and how it could work better. We talked with Curriculum Council members, the current membership, and they gave some input. It was also sent out to all teachers so that they could look at it and provide any comment if they wanted to. So this was, I think, a good example of a joint effort, and we're bringing it to you for consideration.
Outstanding. I see Michelle out there nodding yes. Comments from the board? No comments. Comments from the public?
Mr. Dillon has to get home. I do want to chime in on that. It did go before our representative council members. It went to executive board. It went to Leah Curriculum Council members 3 times with revisions back and forth. Everyone felt that the dialogue was open. There were things that we asked to change. There were questions about language. And we look forward to this policy change and kind of tightening things up and making sure that things come to you with the approval. We really look forward to that open discussion on more topics like this.
Thank you, Michelle. That makes me very happy to see everyone working together like that.
Mr. Chair, second.
Got a motion over here, second from Mr. Nava. Gotta be quick around here.
Yeah.
All right.
There's somebody who wants to speak.
Any further discussion? Oh. Did you see Michelle run up to the mic? All right.
My good knee is now my bad knee.
You were a track coach, weren't you?
Well, my good knee is now my bad knee. Just real quickly, it's not specific to this because this is LEA, but I've heard a couple things. There was some miscommunication regarding LPPA's representation on Curriculum Council. It's kind of a side issue. And I just wanted to clarify that we haven't had an LPPA member on Curriculum Council, and there were some policies in the past. And so Dr. Washer also reached out, and LPPA will have a member moving forward on Curriculum Council. So I think there's an effort to get us involved. And I think the confusion with some of our members is maybe at one point we had more people on Curriculum Council and we were having a reduction. But in fact, we really don't have anybody that's shown any interest, so we're just trying to get some moving forward. So I just kind of want to clarify that. So she's also reached out to our union as well. Thank you.
Fantastic, John. Thank you for sharing that with us. Gosh, good job. All right, any other comments? Student vote.
Aye.
I like that. Just right down the line. That works out really well. Calling for the board vote. Okay. Personnel matters, Mr. McKilligan.
Mr. President, personnel matters are presented for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve personnel matters.
Second. Motion and second. Students don't vote on personnel matters. Calling for the vote. All right, we've got 7-0. Communications from student representatives. We have 3 here tonight.
Mr. President, you have.
All right, who would like to go first?
Oliver.
All right, Captain, you're up.
Hello, Dr. Washer, President Neely, and members of the board. My name is Jasmine Villanueva, and I'm representing Tokay High School. Right now, we're planning our prom for May 12th at the Waterfront Hotel, and this will be our first time having our prom here. Comedy Sports Match is January 19th, that's our next one. For student government, we are planning our Mr. Tokay pageant, where our principal, Mr. Sandstrom, and other staff members will be judging it on February 15th. And we're going to be having our second blood drive of the year on February 23rd, and we're trying to exceed the 65 units of blood that we collected in the first quarter. For our sports, our boys basketball team will have a game tomorrow night, and our girls basketball team will have a home game on January 18th. And one of our counselors, John Hunt, is starting a PBIS, and he's starting to give away Tokay Pride tickets as awards. So all the teachers will be giving those to 50 students that they're recognizing as having positive behaviors. And in student government, we're also planning our first spring fling dance for February 23rd, where we'll be having a dinner, dancing, and games for all the students. And the NorCal Science and Technology Festival will be held at Tokay on February 3rd. We're going to be having the WASP accreditation visit on February 25th through the 28th. And our FFA and football crab feed will be on the 24th of February, and the football players will be volunteering as servers this year again.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Washer. My name is Melissa Baumgarn, and I'll be representing McNair. So since the last board meeting, our clubs have been actually very active on campus. Back in December, Link Crew hosted this event called Coco Cram, and they host this right before almost every finals week. Basically, Coco Cram is an open study session for anyone to attend, where they can take the time to study for finals and also drink hot chocolate or fruit. And next on my report, I have a couple of events to talk about from student government. Throughout the school year, we host about 4 dances, and our most recent one was our winter formal. It actually turned out to be a huge success with nearly 150 ticket sales. Normally we sell around 100, but This year we just happened to sell more, and these proceeds will actually go towards our prom in May. And right before formal, we hosted an ugly holiday sweater day. Basically, students and staff were invited to wear ugly holiday sweaters to celebrate the holiday season. As an incentive to get as much people to participate, we turned it into a contest where there would be 2 winners. The first place prize would be a $10 gift card to Starbucks, and the second place prize would be a $5 gift card. And the student that won first place had a crazy Christmas sweater with a Christmas tree plus a bunch of Christmas lights glued onto it. And the student that won second place simply just had a mirror on his sweater. Now, something new that took place at McNair was a Hogwarts mystery dinner. This event is based on the Harry Potter series, and it was hosted by our very own theater department. So what our theater department did was turn our main building into a somewhat smaller version of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios. At the dinner, there was food and drinks based on the story like butterbeer. Teachers were dressed as Harry Potter characters, and there were games for people to participate in. Regarding special recognitions, I'd like to mention our National Honor Society and our Mecha Club. Our National Honor Society recently had their induction ceremony to certify its members as part of the club. And this wasn't listed on my report, but our Mecha Club, which stands for Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, partnered up with St. Mary's Mecha Club to collect goods such as blankets, canned foods, clothes, etc. for those in Mexico that were affected by the earthquake. And these goods were then donated to the Mexican Red Cross to be shared. Lastly, a couple of upcoming events at McNair would be our annual talent show called McNair's Finest on January 26th, and our Valentine's Day rally in February.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, ladies. You may not know this, but we had a little board get together, and Mr. Freitas won our ugly sweater contest.
Watch out, George.
By far.
He'll get you.
By far.
He's an attorney, you know.
That was an ugly one. All right. Moving right along. Let's see. Next on the agenda is employee groups. Employee group comments. Seeing none.
What?
Oh, Michelle, okay.
She's back.
Get you guys to work this out.
Bad thing.
Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year again. As you know, the transfer process is open today, and the first list is out. I have heard from this board that they do not like combo classes. Teachers don't like them either. We would like to know if you are still committed to fund the halftime person for those specific 5-6 combination classes that will be out there next year. We would also like an update on exactly how many combo classes we have this year and what are slated for next year. We hope that we talk hard numbers in this process when we're establishing classes. We know that there is some give and take and student movement that is part of it. We certainly do feel that this is a big deal. That makes a difference in students and in teachers, the challenges that they have, especially with the math curriculum. So we'd ask that you still commit to supporting that halftime person for those 5-6 combinations. We want to report out to you about our recent LCAT meeting with LEA members. We were able to give input and look forward to hearing about those results presented to you. We did have a delay that afternoon to allow some members from Stockton to attend the meeting. Although we believe that hearing about the process was good for the many as a whole, we did hear from our members that they need another opportunity to give more input, more time to just challenge themselves to go through all of the priority standards and what those things are that are in place, those that they have concerns with, are they meeting the needs, and moving forward, what are some possible solutions? We know that 20-minute time block was not nearly enough time for our members to address, and we will be scheduling something with our members and then be sending that input on to Lisa Katowski, who gave a very thorough explanation of the history of LCAP. We did have some members that week that said, what is LCAP? And so it's meeting the needs of both ends that are educated on LCAP and LCCF funding. We are not happy, unfortunately, to report what we've been told about the online system Edivate. I was told here at a board meeting that it was being rolled out not to teachers, but to admin, district office, and tip teachers, or brand new teachers. So we're not happy, especially when we took your word on that. The board reiterated that RBET would be looking at the IPD. I've shared with some of you our concerns about that system. We understand that there have been issues with communication, and we do also look forward to trying to solve those communication problems. However, once again, the message was not sent out unified to all school sites. At least it didn't come through that way to teachers. If you are looking at a new system this year, we'd like to kind of talk about parameters. You want them to give you input on a system and try it out? Great, but that needs to be done during contract time. We don't feel it should be assigned as homework. We don't think teachers need to be assigned to do presentations. We obviously do not advocate them trying to figure this out on a CP day. I believe that one is fixed. But now we're told that admin will be tracking the teachers, how they go online, seeing what they're doing, looking at what their responses are. In our opinion, that's evaluation. So who's going to do this? If it's on your own time, after school, most tenure teachers know that's not contract time, I'm not doing that. Well, then you have all your brand new teachers who are doing it to make sure that they're being seen favorably in their administrator's eyes. We have a large group of those teachers who are attending school after hours. So we really want to look at what is this for at this time? Is this to try the system out and get a feel for it? If so, we think the only time that that should be done is during contract time, such as a staff meeting, professional development time that's scheduled. We do not feel that, as far as admin looking at my teacher responses, that this feature should maybe, hopefully, be turned off until we can come to some kind of agreement. If this is a piece of the RBET, then let them totally decide. We want trust, and we need help to keep us working together on that. Discussing, debating, strategizing before it's rolled out. Each site finds it challenging. I guess that was my timer. Stop talking.
There.
So, as we go forward, we just ask that you pay careful attention and that leadership is given direction about specific parameters before we lose the trust of our members for something that they're being asked to do afterwards. My closing comments are about curriculum council and the positive policy changes that were approved tonight. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. Deborah? John? All right. Let's see here. Let's get back to the agenda. We've got board members.
Mr. President.
Sir.
We in our consent agenda, we received $75,000 in donations. Thank you very much, everyone, for your generosity. That is very much appreciated. And once again, knocked me over with a feather. And crab feet, got kids. Saturday night. If you weren't there, you really missed something. Who put it together? Downtown Kelly Brown breathed new life into our event, and we sold over 100 more tickets and raised thousands more dollars. And everyone can't wait for next year's event. So great job to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment on the crab feed, but Mr. Frater said it all. I totally echo what he says. Also, I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year, and I hope your holiday season and Christmas season went well. It was kind of nice in one way that it was done really early in your vacation, so that, of course, it's kind of a squeeze to get it all done between vacation time and Christmas. But after that, hopefully your week was restful, spent family time, alone time, whatever time you wanted. So it's good to see everybody back. Let's dig in and keep going till the end of the year. Thank you.
And Mr. President, if I can add, our co-chair, Lynn Avey. I mean, what an amazing job she did, and all the directors in there when it helped. Shouldn't name names, but those are two names that really stood out. So
it was a good event.
Mr. Connexa?
Yeah, Mr. President, I have three, I think, feel-good stories. I think going back to Christmas again, Lodi High School has a group of teachers that call themselves runners, but they've done an annual Santa run for the since the early 90s. They even call on old guys sometimes to come back and help them run. This year, a couple things that stood out for me was our first stop on the Santa run in downtown Lodi was Emerson Park Playground. It was a sunny day. There's a ton of kids and their parents out there, and so of course we stopped to give out candy canes to the kids. And I came up on one little girl who had just gotten her candy cane, had the wrapper out, and was ready for another one. And I said, well, you know, would you like another one? And she immediately threw her wrapper on the ground. I said, okay, that's great. Now, if you throw your wrapper away, I'll give you another one. And Mom was right there and supported what I asked of her. And then at the end of the day, we stopped by Hutchins Street Square, and those play schools are preschool, and they loved seeing all these weird people with red hats in because we're all giving them candy canes. Thing that I liked was the excitement that I saw from kids, and the fact that teachers get to do this every day. Not only do our running teachers provided great PR for our district, but just on a personal note, it just shows me again how much our teachers do. Even though it might not be reading, writing, arithmetic, it's learning how to be good citizens. The next story I have is from the San Joaquin section. They're having they had an academic team championship. You don't have to be involved, but participating schools submitted their athletes' GPAs to the section office, and the results were tabulated and posted. Lodi High School was in the top 5 schools in 7 out of the 8 fall sports. And so their average GPA was probably around 3.6, 3.7. I've always felt that students that are involved in athletics or any extra or co-curricular activities seem to do better in academics, and this was a good proof of that. And I challenged Bear Creek, McNair, and Tokay, if they were not involved with that, is to see what they can do for each sport. And my last one comes from John Muir School. I was doing my one of my bicycle rides because I'm retired, and on the bike path that's close to John Muir School, I saw a bunch of kids running on the bike path, and here's a teacher at the end, so I stopped and talked to him, introduced myself. The teacher is Rio Lazaro. He was in charge of the John Muir Running Club. And well, that's pretty cool. There's about 10 people. Well, by the time I went on down, I saw there's probably at least 25, if not more, kids involved in this after-school project. Every corner where a kid could get lost, there were adult supervisors there. And so I did, in fact, contact the principal and told him what a great job it was. And another example of teachers doing stuff for kids that is just extra. And I just wanted to report that out and let the public know how much I appreciate what they do.
Thank you, Mr. Taxett. Mr. Nava.
And Mr. President.
Sir.
The MC for the event, for the crab feed, Mr. Randy Melandro.
Thank you, Ms. Melandro.
You made the New York Post, Randy, the MC. I just want to mention, you know, I was thinking when the students were discussing their winter sports, I said, aren't you guys are galactic you're in with wrestling and basketball, girls and boys? But no, now you got soccer in the winter time and you have to play it outside. That's not good for an athletic director because, I mean, it's pretty cold out there to be supervising those, okay? Anyway, very, very good report. Thank you very much to keeping us informed on what you people do in your schools, and we're always welcoming your good, positive reports. Secondly, I want to talk about combo classes. Elodia, how many combo classes do we have in the elementary schools?
We have 34 right now, and we're projecting 28 next year.
Okay, very good, 6 less. When I first started here, we had 58, okay? So we're getting down, and I'm anti-combo classes, but my gosh, what do you do when you have 4 kids here and 8 kids there, and then you have to have 2 FTEs? That's very difficult. Number 2, we want to do anything that we can to maximize the teacher skills in those classes so those kids are prepared thoroughly and they're not left behind, whether you have a 1-2 combination, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. And again, that's my pet peeve. I don't like them, but it's a necessary thing that we do, and hopefully that we can get some people there to help them and maximize the teachers' learning, like I said, teachers' skills in teaching and benefit the students. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. President. In charge of ticketing,
Yes,
Valerie McPhee. Great job.
Great job, Howard. All right. Yeah.
Well, I was going to speak, but I don't know if Ron's going to holler or not.
He doesn't interrupt anybody.
Oh, well, then that's okay. I was going to speak, but Joe Nava said everything that I wanted to say. And I'll say it with spades, Joe, thank you, because I hate combo classes.
Ms. Gassel.
Curriculum Council. In my day, which has been a while ago, I admit, it was a force to be reckoned with. I'm very happy to hear all the kumbaya surrounding Curriculum Council vibe right now. I'm just very happy to know that. It is a much needed positive force, absolutely. Jasmine and Melissa, you do such a good job connecting us to high school. Don't we all wish we were young again and we could participate in all these wonderful things that you do? Thank you so much for your leadership. And Raj, I understand you're going to be helping us out in a report item coming up, so thank you too.
Mr. Prentice, you have anything to?
Well, I have Dr. Washer's desserts were absolutely amazing. So
Great job, Dr. Washer. What was the highest?
It was not mine.
I know. I mean the amount for a dessert.
$950.
$950.
Whoa! Cow.
that was one
Yeah,
amazing jar of toffee.
That was
Wow, that is amazing.
That was a battle.
Okay. All right, I'm closing it up here real quick. A few things to talk about. First of all, the RBET meeting. We had an RBET meeting last week, and to let everybody know here, it went great. We had some classes on individualized professional development. To see these educators, both the teachers and the administrators in action was absolutely amazing. I thought they did a fantastic job. Also, there was a lot of kudos for the professional development
that started at the beginning of the year. Well, that was 2 days, was it, at Millswood?
They were all over the place, I'm sorry.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, some of it was at McNair, some of
Yeah.
it was at Millswood, it was all
Wow.
over the place.
Heard a lot of good things about that. Teachers were able to select the classes that they wanted to go to, so that was a very positive thing on that. I'm going to segue right there into this whole Innovate thing, and this is exactly what I'm talking about communication, because there's an issue there, and we just need to solve it. Innovate was only designed to be an interim before the RBIT put everything together. Since they weren't going to be able to do it right away, this was something we had, and we only have it for a year. If it works, we keep it, if RBIT wants to keep it. And if RBIT doesn't want to keep it, we don't keep it. I mean, that's the way we'll work on it. But it's a communications issue, that's what caused that. So that's a good example. I was going to bring that up anyway, and I'm glad you did, Michelle. Good school services meeting today. Interesting, the budget, we are going to be, quote, fully funded next year. What does that mean? Again, 50th in the nation, all right? It's crazy. And the bottom, we're not number one. Yeah, so the whole issue of adequacy was up again, and I'll talk about that during my thing on CSBA. Attended the Lodi Has a Dream rally, I guess you'd call it, celebration on Monday, on Martin Luther King's birthday, celebrated day. It was fantastic. John was there. A lot of people. We had to actually put out extra chairs in the back there, so it was a fantastic event. I also attended the LCAP meeting with LEA. I'm going to give you my feedback on that LCAP meeting real quick. I think that what we need to do is to produce some videos that people can watch beforehand, before they go to those meetings. And then we don't have to do quite as much history in there, and then we would be able to use more time for people to actually express opinions. So I would really like to see that happen. And combo classes, I would use this as an example. Every class I had from 1st to 8th grade was a combo class, but they probably point that and said, see what happens. So I won't bring that up. Jasmine, Melissa, great presentations. Thank you very much. And that's all I have for right now. All right. Superintendent, do you have anything else?
No further comments, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Katowski, the California School Dashboard. This is what Raj has been waiting on. Raj, I've been through this. It's not that good.
We have lots of stuff. Little colored pie charts.
Right. Well, and if they're not colored, we've got the pie chart.
Yes,
Right. What do you think of this? I must have heard that before. Yeah.
Okay, President,
It's needed.
thank you.
All right.
I had one of my senior moments. President Neely, members of the board, Dr. Washer, Mr. Melandro. Actually, Mr. Melandro is here to give you the update on the California School Dashboard for Lodi Unified School District. And I'm going to turn it over to him because he is the expert on the dashboard. Yes, you are. So you'll be hearing from Mr. Melandro.
Thank you, Ms. Katowski. Mr. Neely, members of the board, Dr. Washer, before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank the ARE department and specifically one individual in the back of the room, Ms. Deborah Ladwig, for all her help and assistance in putting this together for this evening. So many of you who have been around know we had an old system of AYP, API. We moved away from that. Last year was our first year to move into what the state says kind of a new model. And that is to use multiple measures and the idea to really support schools rather than to punish or sanction schools for how they're doing. So we no longer have a single score like we used to. We are using what they call the California way. So schools are judged in multiple categories, both on how they're doing, called status. You'll see that on the left-hand side, multiple levels, and change across the top. So it's taking into account how schools do in that particular year, and then how they have done compared to the previous year. So again, you see status and change, getting us back to really what California likes to do, which is the growth model, but also including what the federal government likes, which is to have a goal for everyone to reach. We no longer have numbers like we used to have. Instead, we have beautiful colors and pie pieces. If you are a color, a district, or a school that is blue, then you are the epitome. You have done everything you could possibly do. You're at the very top. Truly green is the goal to where we want to be, where you're doing very well. Yellow means, well, you're kind of in the middle. There might be a little work to be done. Orange, well, we might need to take a look at what's going on in that area. If it's red, then there are major concerns that need to be dealt with. So we're no longer given a single score. So what do we look at when we look at schools and we look at districts? We look at chronic absenteeism as a part of, we will get a number, or rather a color for that. This year is the very first year, so they're still working on that a little bit. Suspension rate, English learner progress, graduation rates, college and career readiness. This is the first year that they've begun to look at that, so we don't have a color yet because we only have status. The state assessments in math and English language arts for elementary and middle school. Now for elementary and middle school, that state assessment is the academic achievement. For high schools, it will be that college and career readiness. So now on to the real data. When we look at last year, how did we do last year? In general, we were okay in English learner progress and suspension rate, and then we had some and graduation rate. We were yellow, which means we were kind of in the middle, although at the low end in ELA and math. How does that translate this year? Where are we this year? So this year, if you take a look, both in English learner progress and graduation rate, Lodi Unified School District is in the green, which means they're doing very well. Suspension rate, we're in the yellow, which again, we're kind of medium in the middle, but we are orange in English language arts and mathematics. So that is an area of some concern. We also need to take a look at state indicators by the LCAP groups. And that's what you're looking at here. When we look at the LCAP groups, across the top are the groups, across the left-hand side are the categories in which we're measured. When we take a look at this, we see we do have some issues that we need to address. When you take a look across the top and you look at our homeless, as you go down that column, we notice the last three pie pieces there are red. That becomes an issue for us and with the state. Also, the final column, we have 3 red circles there as well. And that is for our students with disabilities. So both students with disabilities and homeless, they bring us forward where we are going to be working with the county to get some assistance in working with those groups. Also, again, we take a look at our ethnicities, and that we have one ethnicity that is in the red on ELA and math, but then we have lots of orange there, which are areas we do need to keep an eye on as well. Because when we look at our pie charts and at our colors, we're looking at them overall, but then we begin to be able to drill down and look at our student groups and ethnicities. Now this is chronic absenteeism rate, and I know Mr. Nava, you were looking forward to seeing the colors on this, but unfortunately we don't have any yet. And that's because the state has yet to determine what those cut points are. But we did want to share what chronic absenteeism, what the definition of that is, and what that means. When we talk about chronic absenteeism, what they're measuring is students who have missed 10% or more of the time they should be in school. So that is the definition. When we look at across the way, we see that statewide it's about 11%, county it's 15.5%, and in Lodi Unified we're 12.7%. So we're right in between those two. We don't know if that is low, medium, high, because the state won't determine until March what those categories are. But we did want to share with you that indeed we are being looked at in terms of chronic absenteeism. What we're going to do now is go through each of those categories and share with you what color that Lodi Unified is and how that color was determined. So we look at suspension rate. You can see the pie chart there. We have 3 pieces. We're yellow, which means, yeah, we're okay. We're right in the middle. Now, how do we come up with that? Well, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll notice in red that Lodi Unified, in general, had a high suspension rate. We were greater than 4.5 to 8.0%. We were 5.3, so just barely there. But how did we get to be this yellow color? Because high, as you look there, looks like it's red. But if you go over to the right and up, then up to the top and down, where those two intersect, our suspension rate declined. And because it declined, that moved us over to the yellow category. So as we go through tonight, you're going to see there is that status on the left, change across the top, and where the two intersect, that's where we get our colors from. So again, we did decline somewhat. When you look at the next slide, this is suspension rate by site. You can see where we are, where each site is listed there. I just want to spend just one moment on this slide. I'll only do this on this one to make a point. You'll notice in the second column, you'll see Elkhorn is yellow. Now the reason they're yellow, if you go to the left, they have a low suspension rate. If you go across the top, however, their suspension rate increased, but they're yellow. Then if you'll drop down a little bit there to the right, you'll see we have other schools in yellow, but they got to yellow a little bit different way. They were medium, and they stayed about the same. Then if you'll drop down one level again, you'll see those schools had a high suspension rate, but it declined. So that's why they're yellow. The point I want to make is that when you see a color, it doesn't mean the same thing for every school. There are different ways to get to that color. And that's what this 5x5 grid is going to show you, how each of those schools got to those colors. The next slide, we have a suspension rate by group. And as you take a look at that, in general, our groups are doing fairly well. We have no group that is in the red, that is of major concern. Next, English learner progress. We're very happy about this. This again was one where we were green. Why were we green? Take a look to the right. We were high in terms of achievement, and we increased. So if you go to the grid, we're high, we move across, we increased, and that's how we end up to be green. English learner progress is how our students are doing on the CELT and how many of our students were reclassified. And because of that, that's where we were with our English learner progress. Now, we don't really have groups for that because they are a group, which is English learners. Again, you take a look at the sites, and this is, you can see where each of our sites are on this grid and how they got there. In general, we're doing relatively well. We do have 3 schools that were in the red, and because of that, then we need to take a look at what we can do to support or work with those schools to get that up. But as a district, again, we were in the green overall. Next, another green for us, showing that we did very well, which is graduation rate. We were medium at 88, about 88.5% of our students graduating, and we did increase. So let's go down to the grid again. That 88.4 is in the medium range. We go across, we increased by more than 1%. So we go down, where do we end up? Those two intersect in the green area, which means as a district, we're doing quite well in terms of our graduation rate. The next slide shows you where our sites were. You take a look at the red in general, we only had one site that was in the red. And again, that particular site, because of the number of students and how that works, it's a very low number of students. So it makes it difficult to do the status and change with that number changing regularly throughout the year. Again, where were our student groups? How do our student groups do? We find that, as we knew from one of the first slides, our homeless and our students with disabilities are in the red, meaning that they did not do as well as we had hoped. So what happens? We met with the county, 2 individuals from the county last week, who we talked to them about the support that they're providing to help us in working with those 2 groups to get out of that arena. This is brand new. At the elementary and middle schools, we test multiple grade levels. So for the academic achievement, we use the state test. At the high school level, however, of the 4 grades, only 1 gets assessed on the state assessment. So again, is it fair to base an entire school and to look at their numbers for academic achievement based on one grade level? Again, the state says no. What are we trying to do? We're trying to prepare our students for college and career. So given that, you take a look here, these are the categories that they've come up with. This is our status year. We don't have a color because this is the first year, and in order to get a color, we need to have status and change. And since we don't have that, we only have status for our groups. Now, how do you get this college and career? It includes many things. First of all, it takes a look at the seniors. Did they graduate? How did they do on Smarter Balanced? Did they complete a CTE pathway? Did they complete A through G? Are they dually enrolled? So there are a number of ways that students can show whether or not they're prepared for college and career. This just kind of shows where Lodi Unified is, and when you look at this year, where we are right now, we're medium. No color, just status up at the top. Next year, we'll get a change. What did we do? Did we get better? If so, then maybe we would move across and we would have a color that is one that we would like to see. So that is our hope. This is our starting point. This is our status. It's all we have for this year. Okay, next. How do our elementary and middle schools do? How do they do on their academic indicator? Unfortunately, if you look up there at the color, it's not a color we want to see, it's orange. We were low at 24.8 points below where we needed to be, and we basically stayed there. We dropped about 0.4 points. However, just to give you some idea of how that ranked in terms of the county, every school that's of similar size or even half our size was also in orange this year. 43% of all districts throughout the state were in orange for ELA. So as a school district, we do know this is an area we need to work on, because on the left, we were low and we pretty much stayed where we were. So that is why we're in the orange for English language arts. And again, that's measured by the Smarter Balanced Assessment, that yearly state assessment that grades 3 through 8 take at the end of each year. All right, now again, we take a look at how the sites did. Most of our sites did relatively well. You see a lot in orange or above. We did have a few in red, and those sites are ones, again, that we need to work with, that we need to support to try and get them out of that particular area. Next, we have our groups. And again, who are our groups that are in the red, who are not doing very well? We do have a few of those. As you saw from the very first slide, our homeless and students with disabilities are appearing in this as well. But again, in general, most of our groups are over in the orange, yellow, and even above. Again, with this report, we're able to take a look at ethnicities as well, and most of our ethnicities, again, doing relatively well across the board. How about math? How are we doing in math? Same color. We're orange. There is some need for us to take a look and work. Now, we were low. You see there in the red, our status was low. You go up to the top, change, we maintained. Well, we did increase, but again, only by a little less than 0.5%. Where does that rank in the county? Again, every school, I think, but Ripon, every school district was in the orange. In Sacramento County, pretty much every school district there was in the orange, I believe, except Elk Grove, which was yellow. But just to give you an idea, again, we're at about 43% of the districts statewide who were in this category. Taking a look at the number of sites, we see that generally in math, we only have one site that is in the red that we need to do some work with that have a significant level of concern in the area of math. And just a reminder, these are elementary and middle schools because they're the only ones that this is their academic measure. Again, looking at groups, we know we have issues with our homeless and our students with disabilities, again in math, so that's where the county will help. So again, when you look at these, this grid shows you where we are and why that certain schools are that particular representative color. Next, what we're required to do each year is to talk to the board about how our Title I sites doing. So the next two slides, they'll be projected up there for you to take a look at, and I'll run through quickly where we are with our Title I. So what we wanted to do is to compare our Title I sites to the district average and how they did. In general, with respect to chronic absenteeism, which is the one that is listed up there by percentage and not a color because this is the first year, that we have 6 sites that are below the district and 16 sites that are above in terms of their percent of chronic absenteeism. Moving across, suspension rate. Most of our sites are about at the district level, or we do have 4 sites that are actually doing better than the district in terms of their percent of students suspended. We do have a couple of sites that are below the district as well. How about with our English learners? We have 2 sites that are above the district, 7 that are about where the district are, a few at yellow and orange, and 3 that we find are below where the district is. So again, those 3, we have this, we know there are issues, and so we'll begin to work with those sites. Graduation rate, again, we only have 1 high school, that is a Title I site, and they were orange, which was just below the district, which the overall district was green in terms of graduation rate. English language arts, again, 6 sites actually had a level above Lodi Unified District average. They were yellow. We had 12 sites that were about where the district was and 3 that were in the red, which means, again, there was some level of concern. In math, again, 7 sites were above, 13 were about where the district is, and only 1 site, 1 Title I site, which is below where the district average was. So this is an overall view, and the intent of the dashboard is for everyone out there, all stakeholders, to be able to take a look and see where their school, where their district is, and again, not by one measure, not by one single average, but by those multiple measures that we covered this evening. At this point, we'd be happy to entertain any questions, although I'm not sure entertain is the word.
Randy, excellent job, man. That's the first time I've had to explain where I can understand it and follow through. Excellent job, and hopefully, like I said, when we get these red schools up, something's got to be done with those people. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Knopf.
Other comments? Yes, sir. Hello. A while back, we received a report about our math scores district-wide, and I believe the district average was 32%. Does that sound?
The SBAC?
That was an average.
Yeah, on the Smarter Balanced Math Assessment.
Okay. So what, it's saying 32% are what? Proficient or above?
Exactly.
Okay, so then, that's an average. So that means that it's actually a lot worse than 32.
In some cases?
Because you've got to have some really super, super low ones to get an average that low. So how does that correlate to this? That's kind of the main question.
So that is a part of this. That would be the status. So those schools who do not do very well, and again, this same report is available. You can go online to the California dashboard and find that for every school site. So if they're very low this year, that may get them that red to start. But if they made increases, that may have moved them over to the next color to orange. So that's the point, that even if you're very low, you still have an opportunity to show that growth using this status and change model.
What if you're very high and you don't show growth? Does that knock you down to the next color?
It can, depending on how far that you dropped.
And that's why it's really important to remember that this isn't a model to compare schools. like, remember the old API?
Correct.
You know, you looked and you compared numbers. Because, as Randy said, there are different ways to get to a color, it's very difficult to compare schools by their color. So it's a growth model. You look at the school as it's a school each year and how they're improving, rather than what color is this school compared to this school? Because that doesn't make sense with this model.
With this model, it can change and there's too many variables, so it's a very individual kind of
Exactly.
thing, as opposed to the SBAC, which says 32% are below, are proficient.
Dr. Washer, did we hear today at that school services meeting that the federal government had not approved this model? They say that it only approved 15 states, but California, there was some.
I don't remember that.
I
I remember them
You
saying
remember
that 25% of the districts are receiving county assistance because of special ed.
Right.
Which we felt, I don't recall that comment though.
You remember that?
I don't think that it was the model.
It was a waiver or something.
Yeah, okay, never mind, I'll check into it. All right.
We do have there is a state waiver for the science because of the implementation of NGSS. And that was partially approved
Right.
a while back with some changes.
Okay. And didn't you say there was something about the special ed on graduation rate because of we use certificates?
Yes, our special day class students, for the most part, are in a path that will earn them a certificate of completion, which is not recognized. It is approved by the state as an option, but is not recognized in this model by the state as a diploma. So that counts against us.
Do we plan on doing anything about that?
That's one of our strategies to work on with the county, is how can we look
great.
at that and see how we can improve that.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Sir?
Ms. Melandro, again, I would join in with Mr. Navas said. I've heard this presentation 3 times. I finally understood it tonight. So thank you very much for doing that. Maybe because you are the voice of the crab feed.
I do what little I can to serve the children, Mr. President.
I feel like I should be bidding on a dessert.
So this is the dessert of the meeting.
Now, the next step with this, though, is now that we have a report card, we do our analysis, and we're going to present the board with what we believe priorities is from this, and some triaging of high priorities, medium priorities, and low priorities.
Mr. Freitas, yes, I'm glad you asked that, and that within this model should be reflected in our LCAP. So the information that we have here needs to drive our decisions for our LCAP.
Okay, and we would have some type of summary analysis based upon this presented to us at a future meeting or study session?
With other data as well.
Very good. All right, thank you. See, I complimented, and of course I asked for more, so anyway. Very, very nice presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right at the beginning, I think it was like the second slide or so, it says that, county offers assistance. What is it that they're offering? A lot of
It's
money.
not an offer.
Well, that's very interesting because Dr. Washer, I think that was her first question when we had our meeting last week. They're a little bit confused as well. This is the first year for them, and we did sit down with them and talk about what area would be the focus area, and we did ask them as I was looking at all the other districts around us who, many of them did not have the same coloration for students with disabilities in graduation rate. So our question is, what are they doing differently? So one of the things that the county is doing now is they're looking at other districts and trying to determine what are they using in order to provide a diploma for their special education students. So that's the very beginning of that, and that's going to be our focus. As they said, they wanted us to choose one particular focus area, and that's what the team decided upon.
Okay, well, I guess the assistance, sure, any assistance is good, but it really kind of falls flat, in my opinion. Because other than that, if we're going to, let's say, English language arts, or if we're going to math, what could they possibly offer as assistance? I mean, it's kind of a real question.
That's a great question.
I mean,
They're simply going to tell us what to do.
well,
Are you kidding?
if they have all the answers, why don't they just tell us and we'll do them?
And they were very clear that they did not have all the answers, that this was brand new for them as well, and that the intent is that they would be working with us and supporting us, providing some ideas and supporting us in what we were doing. So that's why, again, I think Dr. Washer had the question very early on about what they were going to do to support us, and I feel like they're more than willing, but it is the first year for them too.
Sure.
And so they're trying to determine how this will all roll out, and we did provide them with some very specific items that we would like for them to investigate in order to support us.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not asking that question to throw darts at the county. I mean, they're living with this plan too. It was just, it was a question, just like Dr. Washer had the question. I'm going, okay, so where do we go from here? And that's the next question. So, okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
The homeless population, that must be really hard to track, but about how many are we talking about?
I think the last one was a little less than 200 students. And the difficult foster youth were able to track through the county because of the system. And so we utilize their numbers. Homeless is dependent upon school sites to work with families and then to report that to the district, and that gets entered into ARIES. So that's always a very difficult piece because at the LCAT meeting, there were some concerns that teachers had that there were a number of families who were homeless but didn't feel comfortable sharing that with the school site, and so they would not be included in some of these numbers. So those numbers are very difficult, and it's difficult to come up with a solution when the population continues to change and when we don't even know if we have the bulk of the population.
Sure, yes. And thank you, Randy, Lisa, Kathy, and Deborah for this report, and it's very understandable, so thank you, thank you.
Anybody else?
Comment.
Mr. President, you have student comments.
Sir.
President Neely, members of the board, Dr. Washer. When I had received Dr. Washer's email, I had quickly just glazed over it and thought I would give it a look at the next time. And then I came back to the email and I saw it said California dashboard, so I did more research on it. And this study is very beneficial for our district, as all of you know. And I had a couple questions and discussion points. Some positives first to highlight. Mr. Melandro, I've known you for quite some time now, and you never cease to amaze me. So great presentation. Some positives are suspension rate, as though it is high, it has been on a decline. So if we can increase that trend, ultimately we're going to be in the green and hopefully in the blue in the near future. The K through 12 English learning progress is also in green and is also increased by 2.8%. So that's always a positive. Grades 9 through 12 graduation rate is at 88.8%. I think that's a great number, and it's also increasing. It increased by 3.2%. So that's a significant increase. So some questions that I had. So all local indicators were met when we talked about just basics of like teachers, staff, and things like that. So from what I got from that, again, I'm a numbers kind of guy, so I didn't really get to see the numbers. I saw a lot of shapes and a lot of colors. So where, Mr. Melandro, do you think the drop-off is with this English language arts and this mathematics for grades 3 through 8? Again, I know that standardized testing is not something that are many children's strong suits, especially through grades 3 through 8, but where are you kind of seeing this at?
Mr. Neely, members of the board, Dr. Washer, and the amazing and wonderful Mr. Rajan. One of the things that makes that one particularly difficult is the state measures distance from standard met, because we have standard met and standard exceeded. And although last year we were yellow, we were very low in that yellow, and this year when you look at overall, our overall scaled score dropped a little bit. And that's what caused us to drop down into that category. So although we dropped, it was not a big drop off. It was just, there's always that one cut point, And sometimes you're a little bit above and sometimes you're a little bit below. We were a little bit above before, and because our scaled score in essence dropped a little bit, that's why we're below. But again, we still want to strive for excellence, but in general in the county, that's pretty much where everyone is scoring right now.
Okay. Second question. So when I looked at the students with disabilities data, you can see a lot of them were in red, and I was kind of conversing with Dr. Washer before the crowd feed. It was very mad dash. We were kind of talking about this, like disabilities. Again, we talked about the certificates of completion, how you guys got kind of dinged for that rather than diplomas. But are the same scoring guidelines in terms of analyzing like the pie charts and things like that, how they got that data? Is it the same? And can that be compared to the other data? Again, I know you said that it's not more of a comparative study, but I want to know, like, do they have a specific set of guidelines? Because again, these students with disabilities unfortunately have certain limitations. So I just want to make sure that, again, the California's, their education system, our education system is very intelligent. So I would assume that they would use different scoring guideline, but I just want to know for sure.
In terms of graduation rate, our students with disabilities have the same requirements for a diploma that students in the traditional education classes do. So our discussions with the county were just, if that indeed is the case, what are other school districts doing if they have some alternative pathway to that diploma that could assist us. But right now, again, we have the requirements that a student needs to meet in terms of number of credits and specific courses that need to be passed in order for the diploma to be reached. And a number of our students with disabilities in our special day classes don't have access to that level of curriculum, and so that's why that they earn the certificate of completion.
Okay. So on to the discussion points. One of the categories that I saw were very low on the spectrum were the African American ethnicity. And so they were in the lowest possible category for in 3 through 8 English, language arts, and mathematics as well. And they also have very, very high suspension rates, if I'm not mistaken, one of the highest on the board. So one thing that Bear Creek specifically is doing is we're really pushing for PBIS. So for those of you who don't know, it is positive behavioral intervention and supports. And so some forms of implementation is I am also a member on our instructional leadership team at our school, and we make decisions that will directly reflect, that will directly impact our departments and our students. And so we've begun to form our decisions around the PBIS system, and we actually have our goals up there on the board in our meeting room that, okay, these are the things that we want to accomplish, these are the things that we're moving towards. And so it's another thing that we're trying to do to kind of help alleviate that. Again, we have revisited our disciplinary policies because, as you know, there are discrepancies between just different ethnicities, and we had the Board of Education and their fantastic lawyers come in and kind of do some analysis with our school, and I was there with that conversation. But one thing that I would like to report that Bear Creek is doing is we are revisiting our tardy policy, and through that, Bear Creek has one of the strictest tardy policies. First one is warning, second one's automatically detention. As well, other schools you have 3-4 times before you even get to the detention phase. So just to kind of touch up on that, the frequent flyer, that's what we call our very chronic students who like to skip class more than anybody should. But what we're doing is we're kind of implementing a social probation, and when that comes out, when we get in publishing form, we have a couple meetings next week. I will be sending that out to all the board members as well. This is something that we would like to implement, and if it is successful, we'd like to kind of implement it on a grander scale. So there's going to be certain circumstances where a student may not be able to participate in these sports because sports are a privilege, and education is obviously the #1 priority. That's one thing that we're doing. Also, even attending games, I think, is something that we're talking about. Again, attendance may decrease a little bit, but what's more important, attendance in the game, or are we going to focus on the education? So that's something that I was very pushing for, is the social probation aspect. I think this will help battle the absenteeism that we saw there in that data. Again, we are lower in the county, but again, we're not there at the state level yet, and I think that this would greatly help that. Again, it's hard to track this data. That's something that is a challenge. Again, you did all the best that you could, Mr. Melandro, and I know you did a great job with that. Another thing that I also found very interesting was the foster youth data. So again, they were in the red for 3 through 8 English, language arts, and mathematics, and also the K through 12 suspension rate. It was in orange. So one thing that kind of was brought to my attention was the circumstances that these students are facing. So we have those in foster students. Again, I'm kind of generalizing here. This doesn't apply to all students, but the lack of a strong parental figure in their lives is obviously a main component. Obviously, the psychological development and just growth as an individual, that is very important, as studies have shown. So my mother, who is a counselor and professor at Delta College, who also has a psychology degree, I was conversing with her with this, and she was kind of talking to me about how important it is to have a strong parental figure. And some of these students are dealing with abandonment issues and also other psychological issues. One idea I might have is maybe the county could provide more resources for the students in creating a policy guided to success. So maybe I think all schools have a school psychologist on site, maybe regular visits to them, kind of helping them, because I know Lodi Unified has these resources, but again, as President Neely had stated, the communication may not be there. So again, that's just one of the avenues that I would like to see the district kind of travel. The homeless data as well, very similar, except the graduation rate was also in red. The values of these students, their thoughts elsewhere, they have different agendas. They need, again, these students, I've been very fortunate to be brought up in a middle class family who has valued education. That's something that's been preached my entire life. So I've never been put in a homeless position or a position where education is not a #1 priority. And for some of these students, their #1 priority is where their next meal is going to come from, and how are they going to get to school, and how are they going to deal with the day-to-day. And again, maybe providing new resources, maybe the county can help with that. Again, the county, it's their first year, maybe Lodi Unified can help guide them in a direction to kind of create policy that can help other students, not just our district, but the other districts as well. Again, just the new resources, that's something that I would like to see the district kind of explore. And for college and career readiness, so again, this was the first year, and it was the data I don't think tells the entire story, but one thing that Bear Creek is doing to help with that is we're starting an alumni outreach program. And so what that will help us do is help strengthen job readiness and networking opportunities. So having like a career designated day where our students can come in, it's going to be through the College and Career Center. Ms. Ochoa is new and she's doing a fantastic job already. We've already contacted her. But kind of getting our students ready, because as I walk around and I converse with our students, our student population, one thing I see lacking is job readiness. And that's something that is very important because, as you know, many individuals are coming out of college with a bachelor's degree and they have no place to work. So again, just finding vital skills and kind of having our students, not just our students, but our community come back and kind of share with that. So I don't know if that's something that other schools would like to adopt, but that's something that we're putting in the works. But overall, I think our district is doing a great job. Again, I'm a numbers kind of guy, so this pie chart thing was a little different for me. But again, it's not a comparative study, but I think overall we've done a great job. Mr. Melandro, you did a great job presenting. I've sat in on many meetings where the data is very complicated and sometimes it's not explained the best. Not any board meetings, let me just make that clear. But you did a fantastic job, and thank you for that. That's all I have. Again, I'll keep you guys updated, but Bear Creek High School is doing everything we can to kind of help with this and kind of get us to the blue, because that's where we want to be.
All right, thank you, Raj.
Very good.
All right, Randy did a great job on that, really enjoyed it. This whole thing about the county stepping in to help. I went to a seminar on that, it was really funny. They said, oh, you qualify, or you have the opportunity to get assistance. So they make it sound like you won the lottery, you know? And in reality, it's the IRS, I'm here to help kind of thing, you know? So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Neely, just want to point out, Mr. Khan did find in the binder from this morning's workshop about the statement about 15 state plans have been approved so far, so.
Yeah, we got a letter, our state got a letter that says yours wasn't up to speed, as I remember them saying that. All right, thank you, Mr. Khan. All right, next item. This is mine, I'm going to be very quick about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I've got a new thing that our board meetings are over at 9:30. All right. So.
Oh, no, not
No, it's not going to take that long. It's going to be earlier tonight. All right, let's go to the first slide. I've got to report out a quick one on the CSBA that I went to at the beginning of December. Didn't get to do it at the last meeting because of time. This one will be real quick. Next slide, please. All right. This was two things. You had a delegate assembly on 1 day and a half, and then the rest of it excuse me, was the annual education conference. These are the some highlights from that. There is a new agenda online. I don't know if you guys want to take a look at that or not. It's been improved. You might want to look at that for a cost factor on it. CSBA grassroots movement is moving ahead. They are going to place paid political activists, for lack of a better term, in localities in each region, so that we'll be able to work with them. So, oh yeah, that got Bonnie's attention. Paid political activists. That's right. So they're going to help us go for some different things, and I'll be talking about those real quick. The Legislative Action Day will be March 13th. Now, I'm going to be out of town, on the road that day, but if anybody can make that, that would be fantastic. They all get together, you go up and visit legislators and go in and talk to them. The issue of adequacy has become a huge issue with CSBA. We heard it again this morning too. California schools are underfunded by about $22 billion a year. That's almost a third underfunded. They spoke about that, and in line with that too, they also spoke about the infringement of special ed on the general funds, which has just gotten out of hand, and just about everybody is having that same problem. So those are a couple of issues that CSBA is going to undertake. One thing I found interesting was the whole initiative action idea that came up. An initiative on the California ballot to say that California schools will be funded at this national average, which could get us a lot of money if that were to pass. They did a survey, and it seems that 2/3 of the population in California, voters, think that we are funded amongst the highest in the nation. People don't have any idea where we're at. That's another good reason to use communication techniques. Next slide, please. The annual education conference ran from Tuesday to Saturday. I attended 2 general sessions and 7 seminars. That was every seminar that was given while in that time period. There were hundreds of seminars, but I went on every time there was something offered. I went to it. Candidates for state superintendent and governor spoke, and then the journal sessions, and then those authors right there. Next slide. This is what I want to get to. Usd Takeaways. Some interesting things came out of those seminars. One of them is the summer learning program. That is not to be confused with summer school. It's much different. Summer learning program is used to address children that come from families, low-income families, that don't come in to the education process with the same level of background as some other students do. It's a really good idea. Do it about 4 weeks before the beginning of the school year. It's kind of a daycare kind of thing, but it's a learning experience as well. There are districts that are doing it. That's something that I think that we should take a look at. Google culture. We actually had Google there, some representatives from Google came and talked about Google culture in the classroom. Now, I gotta admit, I went to this because I thought it was gonna be about how to use Google in the classroom, but it's not. It was about that whole Google culture, and I think I mentioned that before about the 10X, Google 10X. What is Google 10X? Well, Google 10X is thinking 10 times improvement. Instead of just small improvement, it's thinking 10 times. They use the example of increasing gas mileage on a car. If you want to get the car gas mileage up to 50 miles a gallon, you can do that using the same things that you do now. But if you want to get it to 500 miles a gallon, you got to do some really innovative, out-of-the-box thinking. And that's what they do at Google. All right, so that's one thing. Another thing is the culture to fail. They allow their people to fail. You're trying new things. And I think that those are some things that we could probably embrace. And I'll put together something on that and just submit it for everybody to take a look at. Third thing on the list is TED Ed. Fantastic. Is everybody familiar with TED videos, right? And TED Ed is just about using the TED framework in schools, both for teachers to record some fantastic lessons that people can use, other teachers can use for free, and also about kids making TED presentations. And it's about them learning how to present. And presenting is actually one of the biggest fears that people have, getting up in front of a group of people and talking. Ranks right after death.
I think it ranks before.
You think it does? Some surveys, I've seen them both, yeah. It's kind of crazy. But TED Ed is all about that, getting kids to learn how to present. That's a skill that they'll use for the rest of their lives. There's always that chance that you're going to get up in front of people and talk.
Even for job interviews.
Job interviews, that's a good one. And so there is a TED Ed club, and I'm going to be helping to start one of those here in Lodi Unified because I believe in this. I used to teach presentations at the last school that I was teaching at, and kids loved it. But the other thing that this does, we talked about our sports tonight and what that does for kids, what a great thing it is. But you know, we've got a lot of kids who are athletes, but they've got other interests as well. And this allows them to have that opportunity to express those interests. There was one girl there that talked about wearing, I think, hijab, is that how you pronounce it? The headpiece with the Muslims that the Muslim women wear. And she talked about what that meant to her and the reactions that she got from other people. So it's a great way for kids to express how they feel and for us to listen. El Cajon School District is an entire district, is TED Ed. We could also play this in with senior projects as well. Since we don't do senior projects as well, they can do senior presentations. That's just an idea. Final thing was innovative new recruitment strategies. Schools are doing this, and a lot of it is based on their, I'd say, their communication strategies. They have some really great websites. They're using Twitter. They're using Facebook. They're using all of these innovative ways to attract new teachers. So that's all I got out of it. Next one. Next slide, please. Questions? That's it. Okay. Here we go. Board committee reports. Seeing none. Future agenda items. Seeing none. We are adjourned.
All right, George.
You're easy to please, buddy. I just gotta get you out of there.
So we have basketball and soccer. No questions.
Hey, Doc, I am so sorry. I didn't think it was going to take this long. Is your sister Debbie?